Hi, Emily.
Hi.
How you doing?
I am doing pretty fabulously, and how about yourself?
I'm doing amazingly. And I really want to talk about Jessica Jones because I haven't had anyone who's watched the series yet to talk about it, which is frustrating.
That's a tragedy.
It is. And so I want to start with what were your overall thoughts on the first season?
I was so off the charts impressed with this first season. I mean, I was excited when the show was announced. I was excited when they dropped the trailers. I was excited when I started marathoning it myself, and I'm pretty much still riding on the high of that entire experience. I mean, such immaculate storytelling, some of the absolute best characters I have seen introduced into the silver screen world. And yeah, I for me personally, this show tops even the Marvel Netflix Daredevil series, in fact, which I also love a lot in respect and I think was super groundbreaking. But Jessica Jones still has a leg up on that show for me just because the storytelling was even more consistent and even more hard hitting and even more visceral. Like, just on every possible level, Jessica Jones went a little bit further and pushed the gamut just a little bit more. And I could really feel that in terms of just the emotional payoff and just the way that they built and constructed the entire show was so good. So I really hope that this means we're going to be in for an incredible second season. It's tough to imagine where we're going to go, and of course, spoiler alert for anybody who's listening to this, as since we're going to get into all the messiness. But now that we had Kilgrave, who's incredible, amazing. I'm sure we'll talk about him more.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, it's hard to imagine how life is going to be for Jessica afterwards, like in the post Kilgrave portion of her life, how just the entire show is going to be after that. Because, I mean, man, starting off a pilot season with such a strong villain, like, how are you going to top it? And so I should have no reason to doubt that they're going to do incredible work with the next season. I'm just still so stunned that I can't even imagine where they're going to go after this. So that's my thought slash reaction in a nutshell.
yeah. I mean, I think you hit it hard on the head. I felt like the writing for each episode got progressively better as it went on, and it did kind of beat Daredevil because I felt more. I think Daredevil was a man becoming a superhero, and it was I couldn't relate to that as much. But with Jessica, it was more of a she's kind of a superhero, but she doesn't want to be. She wants to be just a regular person, and so I could relate to her struggles, like just everyday struggles that she had,
Yeah.
and her problems weren't like. Which I also loved about this was that they didn't make her problems female problems, like, oh, this is a problem a woman would have. Like these are problems that she could have or a man could have. Because I love the support group that they kind of started for the Kilgrave for the Kilgrave I guess mind controlees, I guess you call them.
Yeah.
And so I really love that she was more of a relatable character, even though she had superpowers. She felt more relatable to me, and yeah, I can't wait if there's a season two. I'm hearing rumors that there might not be a season two yet, but I think there should be.
I would say so. I mean, I have no idea how they crunch the numbers on the streamable series on Netflix, but I feel like if any Netflix series deserves to have a second season, it's this one.
Yes. And so let's talk more about Jessica and like where we find her in the first episode. So you hear that monologue in the beginning, which I really loved. It kind of felt like a throwback to like a noir film, just the way everything was set up. And she's a PI, private investigator, and I really love that aspect about her. But she's always drunk on the job.
Yeah, as I love the character of Jessica. She's so incredibly complex and so darkly humorous and incredibly tortured. I mean, she's the perfect noir heroine and yet adapted into this kind of comic book world, but it doesn't feel like a comic book world. It feels so nitty gritty and so fierce. And I love just the entire way that they constructed her character, the way that she fits the environment that she's in. I mean, they could have, I never actually got to read the Jessica Jones comics, but like the pictures that I've seen, she has like this bright pink hair and stuff. And it's like, I love that they really subdued her color palette. And she's got these big giant scarves and leather jackets. And, you know, she's downing cheap liquor at every turn and just like, I freaking love the girl. I freaking love the girl. She is so flawed, but so beautiful in that, I think. And like you said, really relatable as well. And just the way that we kind of got into her psyche too, with her facing Kilgrave, and we really got to see how she sees the world because of him. So it was so much more like in her skull. We really got to be kind of where she was and to feel what she felt, and that was just such a powerful and provoking experience, I think. But yeah, she's freaking awesome. And
Yeah.
like so good to see a female heroine adapted into a television series. We haven't really gotten that with Marvel as much yet. So, I mean, there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but this is so different. So
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
And I think you also mentioned like the environment. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
like in the films. You know, locations aren't really, they don't add much to the story, I feel. But in this, you know, New York City again being the backdrop for Daredevil and Jessica Jones feels like another part, like feels like a character in the series. Like you really get to see. I feel like whenever Jessica is in a dark place in her life, like the environment kind of suits that. You know, like just dark alleys and like these like really small enclosed spaces. And when she's kind of like just trying to peek into like her lighter side, she's in these open places, these open environments, and that I think I don't think a lot of people notice that, but I love how that the cinematographers kind of showed that in just the way it was filmed.
Yeah, totally. And I was gonna say something that really struck me visually about the show was the emphasis on hallways and corridors. I mean, we spend a lot of time watching Jessica get out of that elevator and go down to her apartment, and we're like, oh shit, is the glass going to be broken again? Are we going to see the door cracked open? And it's like, that's almost kind of like a metaphor for her state of mind, for kind of her, the psychological place that she's at, because she's trapped just like going down this one-way street to whatever she's going to face, and she has to take it head on. And all of these horrible atrocities like hit so close to home. I mean, it's no accident that, like, I mean, so her home is her office, is the place where she is attacked and haunted, and like it's this. So the apartment becomes a really compelling part of her character, and every time she's there, I'm super freaked out because it's like it's those hallway shots that would get me every time. I'm like, oh no, who's going to be there on the other side? Because time and time again, there were people in her place and in her space, and it's like you said, every time that she is feeling trapped in feeling walled in by her circumstances, she's in those tight spaces, in the darkness, in the shadows, and then gradually is moving out and breaking out and moving forward and kind of forging her own path. So yeah, I definitely think that was super intentional and super good that you brought that up.
Yep. And I think another thing that I noticed was that, so you mentioned again, her office is her home, or her home is her office, and I felt like it was and I think in the beginning it felt more of a prison to her, because she never what's what I'm trying to say, come off my head. She was always, she never enjoyed being there, you know.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a prison, and she was always scared of who was going to come on the other side of that door, because I love the silhouette shots that they had once they fixed the glass, and even when like, it's just a regular knock, she's like always very worried, like who is this? Can I open the door? Should I trust who I'm opening the door to? And
Yeah.
I just loved how they also did that, how they portrayed how she never feels safe in her home, so it's more of a prison than it is a home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the sense that I got too, because it's like whenever she sits down in her desk and she kicks her feet up, she's always on guard, always on edge, even if it's the cute little neighbor next door who has a big crush on her and is bringing her banana bread or what the crap ever, or it's Kilgrave himself. It's like just everybody comes through this one channel, and there's no one she can trust, and she's hardened herself to the ability to trust, and that's really kind of evidenced in just the way that she interacts with everybody and the way that she lives, and it makes a lot of sense for her. So yeah.
Yeah. And so now, with every great hero comes a really amazing villain. In this season, Kilgrave, played by David Tennant, and every single episode he was in, every single frame he was in, I was just captivated by his performance, and I was I was always on the edge of my seat, wondering what's he gonna do, what's he gonna say. Actually, it's not really what he does; it's what he says. So like, you're really hanging on his every word, and I think for a plot device in television, that's very intelligent, and his power is also very um, it doesn't cost much. It's not big budget, like, oh, flames, boom. It's just, it's the power of speech. It's pretty much that, and mind control.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so paranoid watching this show because it was like afterwards I couldn't look at anybody the same,
Yeah.
because you imagine anybody around you all of a sudden doing something completely terrifying and uncharacteristic and even, deadly. And yet the thing that is so incredibly novel with the character of Kilgrave is the fact that the people he controls are conscious. I think that is the scariest part of his character. It's the fact that they have an awareness of what's going on. They don't just turn into mindless zombies, because quite frankly, that wouldn't necessarily be as interesting to see, because then it's just like, oh, whoa, I don't really know what happened there. I kind of blacked out. So there's not the ongoing psychological implications like what Jessica Jones is, because if Kilgrave worked any other way, her character would be so different and in such a different place. And it's sort of this tragedy she's working through that makes the first season so compelling. The fact that she is trying to find her agency and her will again. And so when you have a character who is manipulating people's will with, so much as a single word like smile, and then instantly, bam, everything that is them, every thought they have, he holds captive. It's freaky. And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a villain quite as compelling, aside from I loved Hannibal Lecter and NBC's Hannibal. Incredible show and incredible villain, but Kilgrave is definitely up there. I'd like to see Kilgrave and Hannibal meet up and see what goes down there.
Speaking of some of our favorite, I mean, so you do reviews for Bates Motel, and I love that show so much.
Yes.
And like, I have like the biggest crush on Vera Farmiga. She's just amazing and killing it. And I wouldn't mind seeing some some Norman Bates too, like that interaction.
Yeah.
He's really getting in the zone. But moving on, and so the way we're introduced to Kilgrave is so these parents from Indiana, Idaho, I'm not sure where, come and visit Jessica, and their daughter's pretty much missing, and what Jessica starts to find is that she's gone missing kind of like the same way that she went whenever Kilgrave first met her. And so she's kind of connecting the dots. Okay, maybe could this be Kilgrave? And everyone assumes that he's dead. Even Trish, her bestie. And I mean, what were your thoughts on Hope, the daughter, or the one of the people that Jessica tries to save in the series?
Yeah, she took some crazy turns over the course of the season. I did not expect for her to end up going out like she did, and it sucked. That hurt so bad to see, because basically Jessica Jones saw her as like another form of herself. And so basically, the whole reason why she's going about taking down Kilgrave the way she is, in other words, trying to prove his existence to the world, the reason she's trying to do that is to legitimize her own experience, to get people to understand, this is what I went through. Like, you don't understand, and now you do. And so with the character of Hope, she's like, I want everyone to see what's happened to you. I want to prove your innocence by proving his malevolence, and so with Hope, she goes down this incredibly steep, steady decline, what with killing her parents via Kilgrave, trying to get back at Jessica, and just the fact that she gets caught up in this horrible love affair is the worst possible thing that could happen to anybody. And then ultimately she has to free Jessica up to actually kill Kilgrave. That's hard to say. But it's really tragic, and yet it makes sense, because it's gotten to the point where Kilgrave's evil is just consuming everyone, and it sucks that there isn't a way that Jessica can actually save Hope, but it forces her to see the situation differently, and to realize, like, okay, now that I'm facing this, it's time to take this down. Yeah. Because the more that I try to validate the fact that Kilgrave exists, the more people get brought into his sphere of influence, the more people are hurt. And so it just takes everything to the next level and helps her actually break the cycle of abuse, because chances are Kilgrave would find another girl and try to do the exact same thing and keep like cloning Jessica, so to speak, just torturing her and constantly mirroring her through other people. So it's absolutely nuts. But I think that having Hope in the story was really an effective way of getting to explore just how horrible Kilgrave is, and how determined Jessica is to do right despite what happened to her. So
yeah,
crazy.
And I mean, that elevator scene, I mean, everything just happens in that hallway, like a lot of action. And it's like, so talk about being haunted, just going home. It's like, so this is where these people died, this is where I got attacked. Just I would hate to live there.
Man, just PTSD central. Like, I was amazed that she actually came back there even after going to live with Kilgrave. I was like, dude, just set the freaking place on fire. Like, start over.
I know.
Get everybody out and just bring it to the ground, because this place has got some bad juju.
And so, I mean, and I don't necessarily agree that Kilgrave was evil. I think what's the word? I guess he was misguided or
misled.
Kind of like that, or just because of his power, he couldn't really tell right from wrong. Because so his story is pretty much that since being a child, his parents experimented on him, and he kind of just grew into this power. And, when you're a kid and you're kind of like, I want this, I want that, you're kind of accustomed to getting your way. And so I think his story is more tragic than Jessica's, because it's like he doesn't know how to fit into this world. And so the only way he knows how to fit into it is just having his way. And I just felt bad for the guy kind of at the end.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. Like, the reason why evil comes to my brain is because of thinking of the way that his actions influence others. Like, the evil is manifested outside of him. And you're right that he doesn't have the faculties, like, emotionally, mentally, to understand how to live like a normal person, how to let other people make their choices. He doesn't have to face that until he realizes that he can't actually control Jessica, of course. which makes it takes his manipulative abilities to a whole new level. And that's sort of kind of where the evilness comes to play, I think,
Yeah.
is like once he's outside of what he normally does to other people, and then he has to actively, consciously manipulate her in subtle ways. But yeah, I mean, I felt so horrible as they started getting into his backstory, and then like when his parents came to the cell and he was actually like prepared to embrace them and maybe even forgive them, and then yeah, that also hurt. So I think part of what made the show really powerful was the fact that Kilgrave isn't 100% despicable. He's pretty despicable, but there's enough of him that you can sympathize with, that like you get engaged with his character and you're like, oh, I don't want to see this happen to him. And then he whips it around and, you know, throws his dad's arm into a blender and you're like, oh, that's what you can do. Okay.
Yeah. And oh my god, even like the episode where Jessica is just trying to teach him how to be a hero. I mean, talk about just like funny quips and just like the back and forth between them two, just like it's the right thing to do. He's like, but why? I could just like, you know, just kill the bastard, you know? And then like,
Yeah.
no, like have him turn himself in, and just him trying to be a hero. You could see like how, like Jessica's intentions were like so good. Like, what if we could use his power to do good things? But he's inherently always going to do the bad thing no matter what. And so, you know, I think that's where she kind of finds her conscience and kind of decides, okay, he has to go, he has to die, no matter what.
Because I think that the one core problem that would have been at play if she tried to kind of craft Kilgrave into a hero is the fact that he still wants her under his thumb, and that's his primary motivation for even doing good, is by trying to win her favor and trying to get her back on his side, you know? So his motivations never would have been what Jessica's motivations would be, like actually deriving pleasure and feeling good about helping people. It would always be about getting what he wants. And I think that that's something that she realizes with the way that he pursues her. So it sucks because she's like the only person who could change him, but yet he's almost too far gone, you know?
Yeah. And so let's talk about like some of the supporting characters, because you know, usually in shows like these, like sometimes those characters kind of get left to their own devices, and they're like, you know, they're not well fleshed out. But I felt like this show did a perfectly amazing job, you know, introducing each character, each supporting character, and having them, you know, grow in different ways. Like Trish, you see her in the beginning, she's training, and at the beginning she looks like she's going to be like this amazing badass woman, but then as the series goes on, she kind of feels weakened by just how, you know, because of Kilgrave and controlling that one officer, you know, just like how her not her physical strength but her mental strength is just kind of like depleting as the series goes on. And you know, in just the way they play that out with her, and just to the point, I think the breaking point was when she had to take that pill to, you know, get physically stronger and kind of save the day. You know, that was kind of her like last, like, okay, like I'm not gonna let this scare me, and okay, let's take this. And then she beats the guy up and she ends up in the hospital for it. And I love even like the flashbacks with her and her mother, and just kind of like how that's a terrible mother to grow up with, you know. And Jessica was really her like very first true friend, who was kind of like, you know, you're a great person and you can be amazing, and you don't have to, you know, you have your own strengths and I have my own strengths, and they don't necessarily have to be conflicting.
Yeah. I really loved Trish as a complementary character to Jessica, and the way that they were able to be transparent with each other and look out for each other through thick and thin. You know, they both endured so many traumas as children, and in fact endured some very similar traumas under the same household. Because I mean, both of them kind of suffered because of Trisha's mother. Of course, Trisha's mother was trying to control her and craft her into this beautiful, perfect pop star, you know, celebrity personality, and she's trying to have some semblance of a life and is being forced to like vomit up her meals in order to stay thin and just all of these horrible, reprehensible things. And so Trish is trying to keep all of that under wraps, and Jessica is trying to keep her powers under wraps, and then they both kind of discover who they are. And after that, I think, you know, get to become inseparable and like sisters. They're really the only family that they have. And so it was really powerful in the final episode, the fact that Jessica ultimately had to save Trish. And when right before Jessica snapped Kilgrave's neck, when he was like, "Tell me you love me," and she looks at Trish and is like, "I love you," and then hoists him up and just, that was such a satisfying moment, and I just adored that. It did such justice to their friendship, and to see the way that they were able to work together. You know, Trish not necessarily having superpowers, but knowing her way around the world, wanting to be independent, look out for herself, and stay away from toxic people. Like they really went well together, she and Jess, and I look forward to seeing where they're going to go in the future. But yeah, Trish was awesome.
Yeah. And another one of my favorite characters was Malcolm, who in the beginning, he's just this junkie that you think, you know, you don't think much of him. And I didn't honestly think much of him either. I thought, okay, maybe he's just like this guy who's going to just cameo every other episode as this poor junkie, Jessica's neighbor. And so the story for that is that Jessica discovers that someone is taking photos of her. And so she's searching just all over the place. And when she runs into Malcolm, she's like, "Oh, he's harmless, you know, like, what could he do?" Or, you know, "He's not a problem." And I just like love like the subtle hints, like, "Oh, he's not going to be a major character," but in reality, he's kind of like that lynch between Kilgrave and Jessica for a certain amount of time with the pictures. And then just to hear him talk about, like, at first it was Kilgrave's mind control that had him do all these things, and then to kind of realize that after a while it was just his addiction that was defeating him, and, you know, really making him do all these things for Kilgrave. It wasn't even him after that. It was just drugs and addiction, and again, just more relatable characters that you attach yourself to, that you feel empathy for. And I felt like, I don't know the actor's name, but I felt like he played the part perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved Malcolm for the fact that, like, I mean, the writers developed him so well, and even though as the season progressed, he was interacting more with other characters than actually with Jessica, it just goes to show that he was finally in a place where he was freed up to help people. He was finally able to conquer his addiction, to step away from Kilgrave, and to kind of, you know, strike out into new life, much like Jessica is. Yeah, and it's crazy to see just how different he is by the end of the season. He's a completely different person, and we get to spend time with him as a completely different person, as kind of an everyday hero. Like Jessica tells him, and she's like, you know, "You need to go look after these people." And sure, maybe the traumas that they dealt with earlier on were not as bad as some of the things that we see with other characters, but nonetheless, he was in a place where he's helping people talk about what they've been through, to consider their lives and what's going on, and how to gain back control and to find peace and stuff. And so it was so cool to get to see him in a place where he could be the one facilitating that, looking out for people in a way that, you know, Jessica, being kind of an abrasive person, might not. But so I think that they make a good team in that sense, because, you know, he's the caring interpersonal type. Jessica isn't really, but she's got the skills to pay the bills. So yeah, so very cool.
Yeah, I love that at the end, how he's the one that kind of answers the call. So it's kind of like he's the sidekick or the receptionist. Yeah. And so I'm very excited to see how they explore that new friendship in season 2, if there is one.
Yeah.
And talking about Kilgrave's mind control over people, some people didn't react to it as positively as Malcolm did, and that
Mm-hmm.
was Will Simpson. He was the officer who attacked Trish, who again,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
that his name? Was it oh yeah, it was Will Simpson. Yep, you're right. Go ahead.
and I didn't think he was gonna appear again in another episode, other than just the one where he attacks Trish. But as
Mm-hmm.
the episodes go on, he becomes obsessive over capturing Kilgrave and killing Kilgrave. That he kind of takes like a dark path in doing so. He's just like very against Jessica and her way of doing things,
Yeah.
and which leads him to take the drugs that he takes to heal faster and uh, grow stronger and faster. And so I felt like his arc, it wasn't finished, which I'm glad, because I felt
Mm-hmm.
like he could possibly be a villain for the second season,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see where that happens with that.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that's one thing that they're setting up now, with Simpson. And yeah, he went on kind of a crazy journey as well. I mean, I never would have imagined that he ended up where he did, in this, kind of tapping back into some crazy top secret military program. And apparently it's something that is tied in with Jessica's past too. So I think that, we're going to be getting into some higher level conspiracy stuff possibly later on. So, yeah, so it looks like they're making room for future plots in that aspect. But I think that essentially what happened with Simpson really is, it's a direct outcome of Kilgrave, and what he does to people is he, for however brief a time he controls them, it leaves such a lasting and profound impact that, a straight and narrow cop like Simpson is all of a sudden spiraling off out of control, getting abducted and taken to who knows where after trying to kill Jessica. So it's a little bit scary, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that.
Yeah, and another amazing character was Carrie Ann Moss, who played Hogarth. Her,
Mm-hmm.
what, is she an attorney or a lawyer?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lawyer.
Yeah, a lawyer who hires Jessica for certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and her, again, I don't see her as a villain. I see her as like this woman who is like kind of um, risen to this place of power, and
Mm-hmm.
then she doesn't want to give up that power, and so eventually she kind of goes down the same spiraling dark path as Will, and is like, well, what if I could use Kilgrave's power for something for my own personal gain, which
Yeah.
ultimately gets her ex-wife killed. And
Mm-hmm.
the amazing thing about the show is that you don't spend too much with her and her uh, relationship. Like her sexuality wasn't her like the focus of her, and so
Mm-hmm.
that really allowed me to kind of be like, okay, this is an actual character who isn't being exploited for her sexuality, or
Yeah.
which way she swings. And so it was a lot of fun to see her her overall arc and just where she ends up at the end, where she's kind of like she's defeated. She has no choice but to help Jessica at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I just love that Marvel is doing an amazing job with female characters, and especially this show because it's very female driven, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just well thought out.
Yeah, I absolutely I agree. It was interesting to see the dynamic between Hogarth and Jessica, because there's just enough mutual respect for them to continue working with each other, and guilting each other and getting all up in each other's space. But it's really a fascinating relationship. We've got Jessica and Trish in a very affectionate connection on one end of the spectrum, and then you've got this other sort of dynamic with Hogarth. And now she sees she's on the receiving end of understanding that, yeah, Kilgrave is an actual thing and has now experienced some of the trauma that Jessica got a taste of. And so I think that the two of them, if Hogarth does continue to be in the show, I think we'll have a very fascinating kind of connection in the future, now that Jessica is like one of the only people that Hogarth really has. It's not like they're buddy friends. They're kind of colleagues in a sense. It's just that one of them is working in the basement and one of them is up in the loft. But I think that they're kind of now on more of a level playing field and understand each other a lot more.
Yeah, I loved how they knocked Hogarth down a couple pegs, and I'm fairly certain that they're gonna like she's gonna have her own little redemption story on season 2. I hope, and so now we have there were a lot of mixed feelings from what I heard from this character, and that was Luke Cage, Jessica's love interest,
Yeah.
and I mean, for me, it took me a while to get used to him because he's supposed to get his own series sometime next year, I believe, and like kind of the only interaction we see him with is Jessica. So like, it was hard for me to kind of get like a grip of like who is this guy when he's not around her. And so when you see him interact with some of the other characters, like Malcolm at the very end, he's you see his character as someone who is very protective and wants to do good, and but also just wants to be a regular bartender.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it was cool too getting to see him interact with oh gosh, the doctor actually from Daredevil.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got to make a cameo, which was cool. But yeah, so I think that they were trying to be a little bit conservative with his character, kind of showing the relationship between him and Jessica and not too much else, because they don't want to get too much into that because he'll get his own show and then we'll see. But yeah, that's sort of what's tricky about preemptively introducing a character that's, he's going to have another complete series spawned off of him. So it's like, how do you strike the balance between like getting the audience excited and curious and then kind of answering some of their questions? So I think that they wove him into the story for the purpose of Jessica Jones, the show, and then we'll get the rest of the picture later on. But it is a little bit frustrating in that respect, because you're like, okay, who is this guy? Like, I only know him through one character. I mean, I love shows where all kinds of characters get to interact with each other, because that's kind of how we establish our opinions. How we get connected to other characters is to see how they treat others, who are their enemies, who are their friends, do they respect people, or, stuff like that. So yeah, I could totally see what you mean, and I think that he's got really sweet potential, and I look forward to seeing what Marvel does with him. So
yeah, I mean, I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
Let's see. Trying to think. It was something about him I was going to say. Wow. I lost my train of thought.
I hope I didn't break the tracks off of your thought train.
No, I think for his character, when he gets his own series, I'm like, I think what I'm interested in seeing is how he's developed there as like just a singular hero, whether or not he's still going to be in New York, or whether or not he's trying to get away from being this not hero, because he didn't do a lot of heroic things, but trying to run away from his past is what it seems like, because in the beginning of the series, you feel this tension between both him and Jessica, even when she's just like kind of spying on him, and we don't get to learn why until like mid-season, where we figure out that Jessica is the reason that his girlfriend or
his wife
died, and so you kind of you find out why she's so interested and so just so interested in him as a person, and so I love that too, that their tension wasn't necessarily sexual tension. It was just, hey, I kind of sort of killed your wife, and I kind of feel
Yeah.
bad about it.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, there was definitely some sexy times that happened there, and they kind of went for it, but then it was like every time after, like she'd be in the bathroom and she would like see that picture, she would shut the mirror, and then there was that one time that he was standing there and is like, yeah, that was my wife, and she's having all of these realizations that it's like no matter where I go, I can't get away from what happened with Kilgrave. So maybe now in the future they'll be able to understand each other outside of their pasts and kind of where their own tortured pasts converged. So it'll be interesting to see, I think. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, what were some of your like favorite scenes or episodes of the season?
Oh gosh, I marathoned it in, I think I watched it in like 2 sittings maybe. And so it's actually kind of tough to like differentiate the episodes.
Yeah.
Um I really was fascinated when Jessica went back to her childhood home, and that was kind of like a huge turning point in the story where we finally start to get to know Kilgrave better as well, not just through what he does, but kind of who he is. So that was a point in the storytelling that got super interesting to me. As far as the specific episodes go, gosh, it's tough. It's tough to differentiate, but tell me yours. That might spark some of my brain juices.
Let's see, my favorite episode was Jessica. It was the whole planning of how they were gonna reach Kilgrave. So they figure out that Malcolm is like their essentially their middleman to getting to
Yeah.
Kilgrave, and so they do all this planning. Okay, we follow him, we get Kilgrave, we knock him out, and we
Yeah.
kill him or do whatever. And then at the very end of it, like all that planning went down the drain because Kilgrave had like this tracker in his jacket, and you also see that episode also showed like Trish kind of feeling like, okay, now I was mentally defeated, now I'm kind of physically defeated because she mentions like I just got tased and I was out of the fight, and
Yeah.
and just how it also showed how resourceful and how well Kilgrave knows Jessica, and so that was, I think, my favorite episode.
Yeah, definitely. Like as things kind of started to reach like a new fever pitch with Kilgrave, that was always the point where I'm like, oh man, like really feeling the tension ramp up. And actually, something to say about the show in general that I thought was really interesting and kind of defied my expectations. So I thought that Kilgrave was primarily going to be a psychological villain for a long time, like all in her head. But they actually kind of materialized him as a person pretty quick.
Yeah.
Which was interesting again because the marketing for the show led me to believe that he wasn't going to show up for a really long time. So I'm glad that we did actually get to spend some more time with his character, but it was interesting to see how kind of the first episode differed from any of the rest, because it was at that point that she didn't know that Kilgrave was still around, of course, until Hope shot her parents. That's kind of a big wake up call. But yeah, like those moments when she would like look around her shoulder and then he would be there like whispering in her ear or like licking her face or just something terrible completely out of the blue and what's in her head, and then she would start like repeating the names of like the street names that her therapist told her to say whenever she started freaking out. So it was interesting how very quickly she had to come to terms with the embodiment of Kilgrave as a person, and that like set the precedent for the rest of the show. I thought it was going to be like, I don't know. I didn't know what I thought, but I think it was really cool what they did nonetheless, and I felt the pressure and tension at every turn regardless. So I applaud them.
Yeah. And so, what did you think of the just the way they kind of said the show said goodbye to Kilgrave, and just I felt it was very anticlimactic. I'm not sure, but I guess because in my mind I was hoping for like this very intense battle, physical wits and mental, but then it just kind of happened to me like really quick,
Yeah.
And I felt like for that kind of character, I think I wouldn't have mind his death if it was more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but like I don't want to say
Mhm.
like too aggressive or too violent, but like an end where you could feel satisfied, and I didn't feel that satisfied with his death.
Yeah, I think what was strange to me was the fact that Kilgrave like completely outfitted himself with like henchmen and shooters and stuff like that. I was actually expecting a very different kind of fight, and I thought it was going to be much more focused and like more brutal in that sense. Because I mean, it was interesting how like he had all those people down at the bayfront, and then he told them to, you know, like start killing each other, and you're like, whoa, okay, this just got real. But it very quickly died down, and then it was those last 10 minutes where they were just kind of talking and he was manipulating Trish. And so it was like it was very abrupt that it got to that really scary point, where it's just down to him and down to Jessica, because really at the end of the day, that's where all of the intensity really comes from. So they kind of beat around the bush for a long time and then brought it up to a climax that was a bit too abrupt, I think. So the pacing of it was definitely strange, especially if you were marathoning the show, you
Yeah,
know, and you're watching it escalate, 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 and it's like, how's it going to build? How's it going to build? I mean, I thought it was even. Actually, I think that one of my favorite parts was when they were in that one like empty concert venue bar place and like
yeah,
Kilgrave was on the stage. I was like, this is kind of cool. So
yeah,
I thought that that was even more climactic than what happened at the very end. But the like the emotional intentionality of it and what they were looking to do, I understand it, but I feel you there. It's tough to say goodbye to like one of the most incredible villains ever and be like, but what if they did something else?
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I honestly thought he and Trish were just gonna sail away into the night, and like
Yeah.
their plot for half of season two is Jessica
Mm-hmm.
searching for Trish and trying to find Kilgrave.
That
But
would be
it is
super cool. Why didn't I even think of that?
That's what I thought too, and I would have loved just to see like that shot of Jessica just like so defeated at the end, and like just looking,
Mm.
watching like the boat just sail away.
Yeah, and that big cliffhanger moment.
Yeah,
But it's like he lingered too long because he was so hopeful and so, I think he was so caught up in himself and feeling so brilliant and on top of the world, and like here he is, you know, dangling little Trish right before Jessica's eyes and she's not doing anything. And so at the last minute he just succumbed to the temptation, you know. His only weakness was ever her. So it's
yeah,
like, I get it. And then there's so much more. But at the, yeah, like just so many paths that they could take. And that's just a testament to how awesome of a villain he turned out to be. So,
yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, we're gonna miss you, Kilgrave.
Yeah, I already do.
I've missed him. I'm like I'd love to see a Netflix series for it, just him and just his like little adventures to like how he like up to where he met Jessica, like you know like
Yeah,
like I would
I would watch that as a miniseries. I would do that. Oh, man.
and so I think we've pretty much covered everything character wise. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Man, I want so dearly to just go back and rewatch this entire season again because it was such a momentous experience and just really reminded me of the power of television. Like that is kind of a big thing that I walked away with from the show is like you know, it took me back to those times of falling in love with some of the other favorite shows that I have, stuff like Bates Motel, for example, and I loved stuff like Dexter and Hannibal and all these really crazy dramas that get under your skin. And Jessica Jones did that so quickly and so capably that I'm like, why is there not more right now?
Yeah,
So yeah, once again, I just applaud everybody who is involved with this, and I hope so very much to hear within the next few months as to whether or not the story is going to continue. But yeah, I think that we are starting to enter a golden age for live action Marvel television if these series indicate anything that's to come. But yeah.
I mean, I feel like that is also happening with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, that show has picked up so much momentum to where, like, I watched the first half of season 1. I stopped completely because it was just like, there's no point to this show.
Yep. I did the same thing.
And then they got me back the second half of season 2, and I was like, oh my god, like, finally, I think we are getting what we wanted, and it's like heroes and superpowered people. And then season 3 has just been like just nonstop. I mean, like, I want to talk so much about that too, but like, just the last episode with Rosalind, I was like, oh my god, no.
Yeah, like that was never a move that they would have pulled in the first season. Like the first season, they had no idea what they wanted to do. The second season, they completely changed the name of the game and like had a huge reveal that has changed the show permanently. And since then, they've totally capitalized on everything that they've built up, and it's so rewarding to finally see that show getting good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for tonight's mid-season finale.
Me too. 2 more hours.
I know. Well, I think for me, it's like 2 minutes till it ends. So like, yeah, I forget that you're all the way in the West Coast.
I know. I'm the last to see everything.
Like I'm in the future, and like I could just spoil everything for you, but I haven't seen it either. And so since we're done here, I'm probably gonna like jump in bed, just like under the covers and watch it. And and so I think we finished talking about everything.
I think so.
Yeah, and I would like to thank you so much for doing this. I know,
of course,
you know, when people like approach others and like, hey, we don't know each other, but would you like to do something together? People were very hesitant. I know I was at first.
Yeah.
You know, and so thank you for doing this with me.
You're so welcome.
And I love watching your videos. I love your Bates Motel videos for sure.
Thanks.
Those are my favorites.
I love that show. I am so excited for the new season.
I know. Like, I don't know where they could go now, but like I'm just excited to see what they do with Norman, how where Vera, her amazing acting.
Yes. Oh, Malanta. She is a gem. I love her.
And so for the listeners that we're going to be having, or just the listeners that are listening to this now, where can people find you on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that?
Well, yeah, so my 3 main hubs are YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and my username for all of those is Emmightysofia. It's EM, the word mighty, and then SOFIA. So you can find me through Twitter, Facebook, and my YouTube channel. That way I do television reviews, and we'll actually I'll be doing another Jessica Jones review on there too. So this is my big warm up. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
I look forward to watching that one episode too. And what else? What else can I say?
Where can people find you?
Where can people find me? I only have Twitter and Instagram, so you can find me at Oscar Rendon 429. That's 2 R's, OSCARRENDON 429, or on Instagram at the Oscar Rendon. That's the Oscar Rendon. And if you ever feel like talking some other shows, I'd love to do another one of these hangouts.
Absolutely.
Maybe do one for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Walking Dead or Bates Motel when it finally airs March of this 2016 spring.
Yes, definitely.
So I'm very looking forward to doing that. And so, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
And I look forward to watching more of your videos.
Well, I look forward to making them. It's been so busy lately, but lots of incredible shows around the corner, and I can't wait to talk about them more.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show, and I guess for me, it'd be a good night because it's 9 o'clock.
Yes, it is 7 o'clock here. So I
So,
shall now take off and grab me some dinner, I guess. But yeah, let me know. So are you going to be posting this somewhere?
yeah. Hopefully YouTube and also on iTunes.
Okay,
So
awesome.
yeah, the name of the show is The Art of Cinema. So if you want to listen to that, you can go to iTunes and just type in The Art of Cinema, and it'll pop up.
Great. Well, let me know as soon as the podcast / video are up, and I will definitely retweet and share. And yeah,
All right.
get it done.
All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you for being.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a wonderful night.
All right. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.